Right now, all eyes are once again on the legal situation surrounding Nnamdi Kanu. And the reason is simple. A quiet move at the highest level of the judiciary is creating very loud reactions across the political space, especially within government circles. What looked like just another court step is now being discussed as something that could shape conversations in Aso Rock and beyond. As many of you already know, Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of IPOB, has been involved in a long legal process with the federal government of Nigeria. His case has moved through different courts over the years. There have been arguments about procedure, about jurisdiction, about rights, and about how the entire matter should be handled in a constitutional democracy like ours. Recently, attention has returned to the Supreme Court because of the role it has played in clarifying how this case should proceed. The earlier rulings from the Supreme Court made it clear that the trial process should continue in Nigeria's courts, despite earlier controversies surrounding how he was brought back to the country. That decision alone carried weight. It sent a message that the judicial system would follow its constitutional path, regardless of political noise. Please, before we go further, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Daouz, your support helps this platform grow and allows us to continue bringing balanced and professional discussions like this. Thank you. Now, after the Federal High Court convicted and sentenced Nnamdi Kanu, his legal team immediately filed an appeal. That appeal is now part of the bigger legal story. When an appeal is filed in a case of this magnitude, it does not just stay within the courtroom. It enters public discussion. Political analysts begin to talk. The community leaders begin to make statements. Government officials begin to calculate possible outcomes. What makes this moment interesting is that the Supreme Court's earlier direction removed certain arguments that were being used to challenge the continuation of the trial. By affirming that the case could proceed within Nigeria's judicial system, the court essentially narrowed the legal battlefield. From that point on, the arguments would focus more on evidence, procedure, and constitutional interpretation rather than on whether the trial itself should even be happening. This is where the silent move becomes powerful. The court did not hold a dramatic press conference. There was no political rally attached to the decision. It was a legal ruling delivered in formal judicial language, but the impact of that ruling has been loud. It reshaped strategies. It changed the tone of debates. It forced both supporters and critics to adjust their expectations. If you are following closely, you will notice that discussions have now shifted toward what the appeal court may decide and whether the matter could return to the Supreme Court again for final determination. That possibility alone creates tension because a final Supreme Court judgment would close many doors legally. Please remember to like this video and subscribe. If you value calm and clear explanation of national issues, this is the place to be. Now let us talk about Aso Rock. That's why would the judicial move send what people are calling shockwaves through government circles? The reason is simple. High-profile cases like this are never just legal matters. They intersect with politics, national unity, public perception, and even election strategy. The Southeast region has consistently shown deep emotional and political interest in this case. Many community voices have called for dialogue. Some political leaders have suggested that beyond the courtroom, there should be conversations aimed at long-term peace and reconciliation. Others insist that the legal process must run its full course without interference. So when the Supreme Court clarifies a direction, government advisors begin to assess implications. Will this calm tensions? Will it increase pressure? Will it affect political alignments? These are the questions being quietly discussed. Another layer to this story is public trust in institutions. So procedures are followed. Procedures are followed. They listen carefully to the reasoning behind judgments. Transparency becomes very important. Supporters of Nnamdi Kanu argue that his rights must be protected fully under the Constitution. They believe the appeal process is essential and must be given fair consideration. On the other hand, the government maintains that national security and rule of law must be upheld consistently. What we are seeing is not just a disagreement about one individual. It is a wider debate about how a democracy balances freedom of expression, regional concerns, and national unity. That is why every Supreme Court move, even if technical, carries national weight. Let me pause here and remind you again, please like this video and subscribe. Your engagement encourages deeper conversations like these. As we move forward, one important point to watch is the timeline of the appeal. Appeals in high-profile cases can take time. During that time, public commentary continues. Political actors speak carefully. Analysts speculate. But ultimately, it is the written judgment that will matter most. Some observers believe that if the appeal court upholds the conviction, the matter could again reach the Supreme Court for final resolution. If that happens, it would mark one of the most significant judicial conclusions in recent Nigerian history. Others believe there could be alternative paths, including political dialogue outside the courtroom. At this stage, nothing is officially confirmed beyond the active legal process. The key takeaway right now is that the judiciary remains central to this story. The Supreme Court has already set important boundaries, and those boundaries shape every next step. That is why the headline says, silent move, loud impact. In constitutional systems, the loudest effects often come from the quietest decisions. We must also consider the broader environment. Nigeria is preparing gradually for future political seasons. Every major national issue becomes part of background discussions. Let us think long-term. Regional stability is always part of those calculations. So even if officials do not speak loudly about it, developments in this case naturally enter strategic conversations. For everyday Nigerians, the main concern is peace and fairness. People want assurance that justice is being done properly. They want stability in their communities. They want the rule of law to be clear and consistent. That is why it is important to follow verified information and avoid exaggerated claims. Court cases move step by step. Each ruling builds on previous ones. The Supreme Court's earlier clarification ensured that the case would remain within established legal channels. That alone has structured the conversation going forward. Please, if you are still watching, like this video and subscribe. Share it with someone who wants a calm explanation of what is happening. At this point, the focus remains on the appeal process. The defense team is expected to present detailed arguments challenging aspects of the earlier conviction. The prosecution will respond. Judges will review records carefully. Written submissions will be examined line by line. That is how appellate courts operate. While the legal teams prepare their arguments, public discourse continues. Some call for reconciliation. Others insist that justice must be allowed to complete its process without political influence. Both sides frame their arguments around constitutional principles. In moments like these, it is important to remember that institutions are tested by difficult cases. The strength of a judiciary is measured not by easy decisions, but by how it handles complex and emotional matters. We will continue to monitor how the appeal progresses and what signals emerge from higher judicial levels. If there are further clarifications or final judgments from the Supreme Court in the future, those will likely define the closing chapter of this long-running legal story. For now, the situation remains active, serious, and nationally significant. The silent judicial moves continue to carry loud political and social impact.